What's up, everybody? It's episode 283 of the Audible Farm podcast, and this episode is brought to you by the Fort Dodge Fine Arts Association. The Fort Dodge Fine Arts Association is all about supporting and connecting local artists, musicians, and creators right here in north central Iowa. Head over to fdfineartsassociation.org to find their community calendar packed with upcoming concerts, art shows, theater events, and more. While you're there, check out their podcast, FDT. It's available wherever you listen to podcasts. That's the Fort Dodge Fine Arts Association, celebrating creativity and community in the Fort Dodge area. This week, I'm going to sit down and discuss some of what has happened in 2025. Not a super eventful year for me, but there's some fun stuff that's happened. So I'm not going to leave too much in this intro. There's some other stuff I'm going to talk about, but we'll check it out in the episode. So we'll see you on the other side of the music.
It's the Audible Farm podcast with your host, Peter Stockdale.
Okay, so the best of 2025. I made a post recently about this on the Audible Farm Facebook page, and I don't know, there's some people saw it, some people didn't see it, but maybe some people that are listening didn't see it. So I'm going to go over a few of the most popular episodes from 2025. So this includes audio and video episodes, but these are just, not necessarily in any particular order, the episodes that were up there. The Spencer Sukon episodes from 246, that was a very popular one on the video. Love Bomb number 233, those kids are awesome. I say kids, I don't know, part of me still feels like I'm the same age as them, but definitely not. So yeah, it's really fun. They grilled me big time on that episode. Check it out, it was super funny. What other episodes we got in here? The Byron Stewart episode. Byron's always a really popular guest. I've had him on a couple times. Definitely fun to hear his story. If you haven't heard anything about his story, how his venue that had been around for years and years and years had to move, it made national news. It was pretty wild. We discussed that, and it was kind of a fun episode to sit down and talk with him about, how it all shook down and everything, kind of worked out for the better for everyone, generally speaking. It was kind of cool. What's the next one? Rural Route. That was a fun episode as well. Those guys have been playing a lot of shows everywhere, doing a lot of things. They're doing some booking for other bands as well, I know, on the side. So definitely worth hitting that episode up if you want to get to know those guys a lot better. That was a fun episode. They just kind of came over on a weekend and we just sit and chatted. That's basically most of these episodes, just kind of hanging out and talking to people. Raleigh Jensen, episode 243, that was another really fun one. I remember sitting down talking with Raleigh on that episode. One of the longer episodes since the reboot, but it was one of those things where it's just like, I feel like I could just keep sitting here and talking more and more and more, and we could just keep unearthing more things. Raleigh plays a lot of shows. And I play a fair amount of shows, but I'm really not, racking up numbers like Raleigh. On top of that, he was a music teacher for a long time, and he's just loved music so much. It was such a fun episode to sit down and talk with him. Owen O'Brien, another great episode. That's a fun one. If you haven't listened to it, go back and listen to it. Owen is still around for the time being, but I'm sure music school is calling that kid away sometime. He's so much fun to sit and talk to. He's fun to, play music with, to watch at jam nights, things like that. So definitely people like him are so fun. They just have such an interesting take on music, and I think it's fun, watching those people do their thing. Zach Sundkin was another one. This episode was super cool because it was somebody that was like, I think I know who this is. And then you sit down and talk with them. You're like, oh, I haven't been in touch with, this person's backstory enough and come to find out all the cool things he's been up to throughout his life. I thought he was just somebody that just kind of just showed up, but he's been playing music for quite a while. So it's really kind of cool, having those stories on here as well. Jake Rosso was one not too long ago. It was episode 272. That was a fun one as well. Jake's very easy to talk to. I feel like that's another one we could just sit down and just keep recording and keep talking, for hours and hours and hours on end. That episode was super fun. We talked about, playing with Section 7, playing with Jared Benson, and things like that. So another good one to get to know somebody if you want to get to know somebody on that episode. Rico Jolly Jr. and Colden Bethel, that was another fun one. Rico Jolly Jr. and the Good Times. I know they've been playing shows. They did a New Year's Eve show here not too long ago. And so that's pretty cool. This one was another fun one. We just kind of sat down and talked. Every now and then kind of went into the weeds when we were talking about stuff. But that's something that makes these episodes, fun to me, I guess, is just kind of talking about whatever, I guess. Bob Johnson. Love this episode. Love this guy. This was so fun. He's just somebody that's local to me. Another person that's played way more shows than, you'd think like, oh, I play more shows than Bob. And it's like, no, Bob plays like all the instruments all the time. He's good at everything. I don't know. He's a super fun guy to be around. He has such a great take on music. This one was a great one to listen to if you want to go back and like adjust the way you think about things. Cause, I'd ask him a question and he'd pause for a second and then he'd come with some like prolific stuff. And it was just, like, oh, like how do you play, music with the new guys? What is it different than it used to be? And it's like, yes, but it's only like, this is how it's different. It's like, well, how do you get around playing wrong notes? And it's like, well, you can kind of do these things, or like, that's what comes from playing music for so long that it's like a second language to you. And, Bob is one of those guys that's been playing music that long. But yeah, those were like basically the top 10 episodes of the most recent year. So that was a pretty classic year, if you're asking me. A nice stout top 10 list. I did have a list of like, broken down who listened to more on audio or whatever. There were a couple episodes on audio that were quite strikingly higher than the rest of them. Of course, it's going to take me a second to load up my information here, but it's kind of cool to I don't know, just see the difference. Sometimes it's because somebody shares an episode or something like that. But like, oh, here, listen to it on Spotify and or whatever. But the Vince Benishek episode, 94 listens on audio. Spencer Sukon, that was a big one. That's 63. One of the solo episodes, believe it or not, got 56 audio listens, and that was the 5 things musicians get wrong about advertising review. That was funny because it's like, well, this is kind of right up my alley because I kind of do both of these things a little bit. So, so otherwise, Kane and Fusen and Sydney McField were the other two in the top 5 for the audio listens. So that's kind of fun to see the audio listens, how they differ from like the overall listens. A lot of people now are kind of watching the videos on YouTube, which, I guess if you're watching this one, it's just me, not even looking at the camera half the time because I'm looking at like sheets and data and like, notebooks and things like that I have around here with notes and whatever. It's a pretty big mess off camera here, but hey, that's the holidays for you. So I want to say thanks to everyone that's joined me in 2025 on the podcast. I want to say thanks to anyone that's listened to an episode in 2025 on the podcast. It's pretty wild. So I don't know. Some part of this is like, you podcast and you're like, oh, okay, maybe a few hundred people listen to this or a few hundred people listen to that, when you combine all the stats and the data and maybe I'll make some reels or some shorts. And, this is also my job. This is what I do for other people for a living. So like I maybe don't do as much with my own podcast as I should. I don't always practice what I preach, but I'm always doing it in my work with other people. And one of the people I've been working with pretty diligently on making a podcast is the Fort Dodge Fine Arts Association. That's something they were like, hey, can you help us make a podcast? Sure, I definitely can. And, they ended up just basically saying, we just need you to come in and do all the technical stuff and we'll do the rest. And I said, all right. And they're like, and since you're like a personality, maybe just kind of sit in on the episodes. So I sit in on the episodes, even though I'm like the John Q. Public. I'm the guy that's like, I'm from nearby, but I don't know too much about all of the stuff you're talking about. Can you tell me more? And sometimes I get a little overzealous. It's like, well, tell me about this and tell me about this and tell me about this. But Shelly Bodorf is actually the host, and she's been doing a wonderful job. It's fun to watch how the episodes, as she gets into it over the last, I'd say 5 or 6, she's really kind of found her stride. She's asked like some fun questions. She's kind of got like a little momentum that she goes, I follow this. Well, let's ask a little bit about this. And then we'll go into these things and then some fun stuff at the end. And it's just such a fun journey. I've podcasted for so long and I've watched so many other people podcast that it's fun to watch people kind of come into their own, or shows start to like feel like they are a show, and this one is no different. If you've never listened to an FDT episode, if you like these, if you're listening to this solo episode, you need to go check out the FDT episodes. It's Shelley Bodorf sitting down with different people talking about art in the Fort Dodge area, mostly Fort Dodge Fine Arts Association members. But it's really kind of cool because you sit down and you can we talk to people from the theater groups in Fort Dodge. We talk to the 515 Big Band. We talk to the Public Art Commission. We talked to the Reforge Initiative. That one has Jeremy Ober and Alex Trevino on it. That's a great episode. You guys like those guys because you've listened to this podcast. They've both been on here before. Ober was just recently on, as a matter of fact. So go back and listen to that one. There's one with the Fort Dodge Senior High School and their arts. Let's see here. We did one with Ben Allers, which is awesome because that's been a very highly tracked listen and viewed podcast episode that they've done. The Fort Dodge Area Symphony. Let's see here. Shiny Top and the Eagles Hideout / Eagles Nest. We did episodes with both of them together. We also did the Blandon Memorial Art Museum and the Blandon Art Education Center. We also did one with Carl King Band. And then there's one at the Ann Smeltzer Charitable Trust, Goodies Irish Pub in Fort Dodge, the Webster City Community Theater. There's also one with the Soldier Creek Winery. Oh my gosh, they have so many good episodes. The board members episode was absolutely a riot. I mean, the last handful have been just nothing but fun. And one of my favorite parts is tomorrow there's a new episode. If you're listening to this episode the day it came out, this is New Year's. Happy New Year's. I don't believe I even said it yet, but Happy New Year, everybody. And their episode comes out tomorrow, the episode with the Fort Dodge Choral Society, and that's another one that is absolutely a blast. I don't want to say too much about it, but we're hanging out at the Larimar. We were hanging out at the Playmore a little bit upstairs at the Larimar, which is a very, very nice fancy bar. It's a fun place. We had a fun time. If you guys haven't listened to these episodes, go back, check them out, give them a subscribe over on their YouTube channel. And, I just got to say thanks. I thank them basically every episode. If it wasn't for them, I don't think I'd be doing my podcast again. But it was kind of one of those things where, like, launch yours, we'll do ours, and we'll just cover all this area, and we'll talk about music and art and stuff. And it's like, oh, all right, I guess we'll redo it here, and that's why I thank them basically every episode. That's why I give them a little plug almost every episode on my podcast, because if it wasn't for them, I don't think I would be doing what I'm doing. So thank you very much to the Fort Dodge Fine Arts Association. Go to their YouTube channel, check everything out. Make sure you check out their podcast, FDT. That is FD space TEA, Fort Dodge Thoughtful Exchange About the Arts. Again, bunch of fun episodes they just recently did. You got to check out the Soldier Creek Winery episode. Yes, they're drinking wine. It was a good one. You can see me in the video cheersing them with a bottle of water. It's pretty funny. Otherwise, the board members episode recently was also very fun. And I know for a fact tomorrow's episode is going to be a blast. So check out that one. That's some good stuff there. Over the last year, I've been very thankful to be able to be educated by Shelley and the Fort Dodge Fine Arts Association and all the guests about the things that go on in Fort Dodge that, I feel like I have my fingers on the pulse a lot of places. I feel like I kind of know what's going on because it's not like my job. It's just, this is just what I'm doing, But then you go out and you find out even stuff like a county or two away, there's all this cool stuff going on and you're like, I guess I didn't know anything about this, and I feel like maybe that is my weakness as a musician or as an artist or as, generally speaking, as my hobbies, as an outlet for my hobbies. I kind of just start to put up the blinders and pigeonhole, and I'm like, I think I've got this nailed down, and you start to just, what works, and this is the thing that's happening, and this is all I see, so this is all that must be happening. And then you start to realize, oh, there's a lot of other stuff out there. There's a lot of other avenues that people have taken with their respective arts or their take on art, and it's not always the same as mine, and these people aren't always going to be adjacent to me or people I would run into all the time, but I'm being educated about it. And that's one of my favorite parts about listening to these episodes, being a fly on the wall, producing them, being the person that edits them and uploads them and makes all the reels for them, etc. I have an absolute blast. I learned so much about the Fort Dodge area, and I learned so much about just art and expression and people in general. It's awesome, and that's no different than what it is with this episode. I can't believe, within the last year, I've got to talk to some pretty fun people that I don't normally think I would be able to talk to some of these people. I mean, probably, like, if that's why I have a podcast. They know, I'll reach out, I'll whatever. But like, it still just kind of blows me away. Like, I did that episode with Joe Alton. That was really awesome. He's got a TV show down in Des Moines, and I get it. He's a regular guy just like me or whatever, but it's still kind of just like, wow, it's super cool to know that, like, there's people out there doing something like, slightly adjacent to what I'm doing, but their take on it is different, and I love it. It's also one of those fun things where it's like, well, if he's out there doing that and it's that good, I don't know if I need to be doing what I'm doing. You know what I mean? But it's super fun to know he's out there. He's literally like living the musical dream. It's like, go out, give lessons to people, inspire people, showcase the people around you that are doing the good things, and then while you're at it, go out there and have some fun yourself. That's gold. That's absolute gold money. I'm glad I had him on the episode. Hopefully he'll come back on again. If you guys didn't watch the Guitar Department Christmas episode, he made little shorts and reels and videos online, was posting them. Absolutely check those out. Lots of great Christmas songs coming out from lots of great musicians around the Iowa area. So that's totally something you need to check out if you like Christmas stuff. If you want to check out something new, I know there's even a lot of my friends that like had never heard of the Guitar Department. A lot of my peers in my area, and it's like, this is something you might need to know about. So if you guys haven't heard, if you didn't know, now you know, and you probably should know. Absolutely. So check that out. If you didn't listen to the Joe Alton episode, if you passed by it and you're like, I don't know who this guy is, go listen to that one. It was tons of fun. It was great having Mike Schulte on here. Mike took some time out of his day to come sit and talk on the podcast. He's another person. He's an internet personality. He's a podcast host. He's a drummer in probably the biggest cover band in Iowa. It's just it's fun to know these people will take time out of their day to sit and talk with me. And I've been afforded a lot of fun opportunities in the last year. I got to be on the radio with Mason, your old pal Mason, on 92 Rock, their anniversary show. That was tons of fun. It was great to be on that show. So, thank you. And Mason's come on my podcast as well. And he told some fun stories. So, it's fun to know that people were willing to come on the podcast and tell some fun stories. Not just this one, but even FDT. Sometimes Shelly says, what's your most embarrassing moment? People come out with some pretty embarrassing moments. I told one on there as well, and mine wasn't so much like I slipped and fell on a banana peel and, cried wah, wah, wah. Mine was more like I did this thing, and afterwards I realized it was more like I was ashamed, not like embarrassed. But now I'm embarrassed that happened. But everything worked out for the best. So go back and find that episode and listen to that on FDT. Pouring my heart out here on every podcast, but the one that I'm the host on. So I don't know. You're supposed to be an even keel host when you're a host of a podcast, right? I don't know. So yeah, other things that have happened in 2026. I got like a list of all the shows I played in 2020 or 2025. Let's see here. I played less shows this last year than I did the year before, but not by much. A few years ago, it was super busy. I was playing with, 3 bands actively, very actively, 3, 4, 5 years ago. And that's when I was really kind of dipping into a lot of shows. That was, when the podcast was really kind of hitting its biggest stride. I was out there talking to a lot of people. This last year was fun. I played a lot of shows. As the year kind of came down to an end, the weather got kind of bad, and I didn't play as many shows. And Jesse has been playing just as many shows as he has any other year, but he's also been bringing along other musicians with him every now and then, which is something very fun about Jesse, is the fact that like he can go out and play a solo show or a duo show or a trio show, and maybe he'll bring a bassist, or maybe he'll bring a violinist, or maybe he'll bring another guitarist. You just don't know exactly what's going to go on. He's been out there and he's played shows with him and just a pedal steel player, which is also absolutely awesome. Shout out shout out to our good boy Dave. Love him, absolutely love Dave Schmieder. So yeah, there's been some shows this year. Recently, we kind of talked about it on last week's episode, but there was a jam night in Fort Dodge. It was supposed to be one of the host musicians. The weather was bad. They're like, oh, it's a whiteout. And I'm like, whatever, I'll drive down. And I drove down, and it was so bad that I didn't really know. Like I was like, I can't go any further because I don't know what's ahead of me. So I have to turn around. And so I did, and I went back home. But recently I played a show with Jesse at the Peacock in Arnold's Park up in the Okoboji area up there. And that show was fun because it was, I won't say, it wasn't like, I don't know, there was like a blizzard warning when we were driving up there, on one of the roads. And it's like, it won't be terrible, But yeah, driving 40 miles an hour all the way up to Okoboji took a while, I'll say that. But yeah, once we got up there, it really, the weather really wasn't too bad. I want to say, like, if I had to compare the two, the jam night was like a zillion times worse because like it got to the point where I was driving and I couldn't see where I was going. I was like, so U-turn, follow somebody going back the other way, let's do this. But driving up there, I could see the road the whole time. I could see out ahead of me. There was cars around that you could see and you could just kind of follow, and they could be near enough to each other that we knew what was going on, and it wasn't that bad, and those are the risks sometimes you take, playing. I'm not the only one that's driven in bad weather this last year. There's a lot of times where like I maybe didn't have a show booked and the weather was bad, and I went out and it's like, I wouldn't be out in this weather if I didn't have to leave town, and then you find out there's like 10 of my peers are out there playing shows, a county away, and it's like, oh geez. So hats off to anyone that's played in bad weather this year. If you got any crazy stories, drop them in the comments. What was the wildest show that you guys had to drive to this year? I'm not above saying like, hey, I can't play, which I did at the jam night. So but at the same time, this show at the Peacock, it was fun. Me and Ober talked about it a little bit. It wasn't something I thought too much about. But on the last episode, he brought up something and he said, it's kind of crazy that when you go to these shows or say like it's bad weather, like sometimes it's packed and sometimes it's just absolutely dead. And it was packed there. There were people there loving it all night long. There were people playing darts there. It was a fun time. The people at the dart board were leery. They're like, I don't know if I want to play darts right next to these guys playing music, but they actually stuck around almost longer than everybody else. They're interactive, requesting music from Jesse and dropping in tips. It's funny because I've said it before, but Jesse's one of those guys. If he's heard a song like 3 years ago on the radio, he'll give it a whirl and he'll get close, and that's he's always the best at trying to play stuff when people request it for the most part. So, and that's not something I am the best at by any means. So yeah, that's the majority of like what I got for crazy shows. I'm trying to see if I got some other stuff. Played some shows with Three Finger Betty up in Sioux Falls. That show up in Sioux Falls was absolutely a riot. It was a Halloween show up there, and the opening bands and the other bands were just nothing short of wild. Three Finger Betty also played a show in Quincy, Illinois this last year, which is also another wild one. That one we played at like probably the biggest VFW I'd ever been at in my entire life. The building was absolutely massive. And the half that we were on was the half of the building where they have like conventions and stuff. The other half was like the bar, and it was so big, it was so cool. That was a fun show. There was about 48 bands on the venue that night, and I think we played first, so we opened up at like 1:30 in the afternoon. No, there was really like 13 bands on that show. It was a wild show. But yeah, not too many Three Finger Betty shows this last year, which is kind of how it's been going, with Clint going out there playing a lot more shows with the Rumors. Our drummer and Three Finger Betty plays with the Rumors as well. And so it's tough to line up shows when he's got a touring schedule, So when he doesn't play shows or he's not on tour, or maybe when we can overlap one when they're nearby, we can like book one. But otherwise, it's not always the easiest to book shows in the Three Finger Betty camp. I've had a couple people ask if we're done playing shows. No, we're not done playing shows. It's just that's how it's going right now. So Yeah, that's what's happening in the Three Finger Betty camp. I did also play some shows with Clint Riedel this last year, which was also pretty fun. Mostly, a couple private shows and then some other shows here and there. But yeah, I did play a couple shows with Clint Riedel. That was also really fun. I did one show with him. I showed up to the show and he was playing. He's like, "You want to come play a show with me?" Sure. I got some stuff out in my car. I usually have some gear out in my car, which is, nice to show up to shows with gear just in case. Drummer, bring some drumsticks, whatever. But the funny thing is, it's not always great to leave all your gear in your car. So I guess I'm guilty of that to some extent. I play a lot of shows and I use usually the same kind of gear for most of the shows. Specifically, I have a guitar amp that I've been playing for the last 5 years as my main amp. It just works. It's the widest berth of sounds that are usable to me with most of the applications, so I don't have to just drag tons and tons of stuff and pedal boards and all this crap with me. If I really don't want to, I can just use this amp. It's good enough and it works. Or I can have a couple other things on the side and really make it really nice, so there's that's what I like, is I just have this one combo amp. Not that it really matters, it's just a PV Classic 30. I like to say it's like the Switchblade amp. It just does a little bit of everything and it does it pretty well. But yeah, that amp I've been using a lot and it's just been acting weird this last year. I still played it at shows, but sometimes the audio would cut out, or sometimes it would pop really loud if I turned it on and off, and just all sorts of stuff. If you've never opened up one of those amps, it's like a C-shaped board with metal jumpers going between each. It's 3 pieces, so it's like a C, doot, 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 and then each piece is separate, and then there's jumpers going around the corners of each of them. It's a big pain in the butt. It's not something I really want to work on. I'm not a guitar. I'm a guitar, electronic stuff. I can do all of that. Amp stuff is not something I've done a whole lot of, and I don't really want to practice on the amp that I use all the time, or an expensive amp. So I haven't really had a whole lot of opportunities afforded to me to kind of tinker with amps. Eventually, that's going to be something I want to get into. If I ever had one of those weird goals where I'm this is something I should do, that's one right there. I know just barely enough about it to do it, but I don't want to break stuff. And I understand everything can be fixed. But yeah, I recently took that amp to an amp tech and said, "Can you fix all this stuff?" And they said yes. And they just recently got a hold of me and said it was fixed. So I'm really excited to get that back. I haven't picked it up yet as of the date I'm recording this. Maybe by the day this comes out, I'll have it in my hands and I'll be playing some shows with it in the upcoming year. But that's something that's really fun. It's nice to have an amp tech around. Within the last year, I picked up a guitar amp from somebody. And this is, if you're listening this deep in, this is a fun story. I'm going to just broad stroke it. Generally speaking, this is what happened. Somebody I know came across a guitar amp and they said, "Somebody tried to sell this to me and I don't want it. Do you want to buy it from him?" I said, "Sure." So I go look at this guitar amp and it's got some dirt in it and cobwebs and stuff. And I'm like, whoa. I try and turn it on. It doesn't work. It's literally pouring smoke, like a smoke machine. Okay. It doesn't work. And let's just say it's a classic rock and roll amplifier that everybody knows. It's the classic amp, I'm not gonna say what it was, but it's worth a fair amount of money. But I was I can't fix this, and I don't have enough patience and time to fix this. So I offered him some money, and I found an amp tech this last year, and I was like, "Hey, can you work on an amp for me? This thing's gonna be weird." The story I got was that it's been left outside. That's all I know. I don't know if it's been outside for an afternoon or a day or weeks or months, but there were cobwebs and bugs and dirt and active moisture inside of it. And it was an absolute mess. So I took it to the amp tech and it took them a while, but surprisingly less time than I thought it would take. Wildly enough, boom, the amp gets fixed. I've tinkered with it a little bit here and there. I haven't played it at a show or anything, but yeah, it works. It's wild to know that there's people out there that can take something and breathe life into it. I was trying to tell somebody, this is like a car that got parked somewhere years ago, and the engine doesn't move, and it's missing parts and things, and you take it to somebody and they fix it. Now the car works. That's what this is like. And yeah, it's really kind of cool. Ran across that story this year. Thought it'd be a fun one to share in the new year. breathe some new life into something that you at once, that was once abandoned. I don't know. There's got to be a fun story in there somewhere like that. That's about all I have for this year, though. It's a short episode, but that's okay. 2026 is looking really cool. Did you guys have any really fun stories in 2025? Anything really crazy happen? Anything really fun pertaining to literally anything I talked about? Drop it in the comments. What was the craziest show you had to travel to? Craziest weather? What was the most fun show or whatever? So, yeah, drop some of that stuff in the comments. Thank you guys very much for listening. I'll see you in the outro. All right, there we go. Episode 283 is done. I know there's some upcoming shows in the area that I really want to check out, which means there's some people that I probably should bring on the podcast to talk about their upcoming shows that are in the area that I really want to talk about. I do know I've missed a couple of shows that were upcoming that happened recently. I apologize. Sometimes it's like I don't think about it until after the shows happens. I'm like, I should have them on. It's like, well, the show's already over, so this isn't really like promotional material for them anymore. But there's some upcoming shows, in my area. I would say within the county adjacent to me area all the way around. That's just I want to kind of check out a couple of them. So maybe I'll get some new people on the podcast that I haven't had on before. That's about all I can promise. I don't know. Maybe I'll be on solo next week again. You guys never know. You never know what's going to happen. But thank you guys very much for listening. Thank you to me for being the guest. Thank you to the Fort Dodge Fine Arts Association. Thank you to the Fort Dodge Fine Arts Association. Thank you. And that's about it, I guess. Check out all the awesome Fort Dodge Fine Arts Association stuff. FDT. Check out your favorite episodes from this last year. Send them out to people. Say, hey, did you hear this episode? Make sure everybody heard it. What was your favorite episode of the last year? You guys are the reason I'm doing this. Thank you guys very much for listening. And that's about it. All right, I'm out of here. audiblefarm.com for basically everything. I'm on all social medias. It's got there's Audible Farm shop.audiblefarm.com, Patreon for episodes a day early. That's the whole thing. That's all of it. All right, thanks everybody. Peace.